Alright, hello and welcome back to my channel. Today we are going to be talking about the history of Bethesda's Fallout games. We're not going to be talking about the Black Isle ones just because I don't have a whole lot of experience with them and I'm personally more of a fan of the Bethesda ones. So we're going to get right into that. So first we're going to be starting with Fallout 3. Fallout 3 is set in the year 2277, exactly 200 years right after the Great War. The game starts with you being born in Vault 101, located in Washington, D.C. You are born to the Vault's primary doctor, James, and his wife. Sadly, his wife dies during childbirth, making your character's dad a single dad. Your father ends up escaping the Vault after you turn 18, and the Vault goes into complete chaos. The experiment in this Vault is that the Overseer acts as a dictator and nobody is allowed to leave the Vault or come into the Vault. So your father leaving kind of creates a huge mess. You escape the Vault to go after your dad. Doing so, you explore the Capital Wasteland, and you find out that your father has been working on something called Project Purity, which he started way before you were born. Project Purity involves keeping all of the water supply to the Capital Wasteland clean, so its residents can drink non-irradiated water. Sadly, the Enclave intervenes and your father dies in the process. After finding the last piece of the project needed, you begin helping the Brotherhood of Steel, who want to take out the Enclave, who are trying to steal Project Purity. After finding the last piece of the project you need, the Brotherhood of Steel leads a ruthless battle against the Enclave at the Jefferson Memorial, where the project is located. At the end of the game, you must choose who activates the water purifier, yourself or the Brotherhood of Steel, because whoever activates it will die. So either you sacrifice yourself for the greater good, leaving the Brotherhood to go on and do good for the Capital Wasteland, or you're selfish and you choose to survive and kill off the members of the Brotherhood of Steel. No matter who does it, clean water ends up going to the Capital Wasteland, and meaning people will have fresh drinking water for the first time in over 200 years. Fallout 3 is my least favorite game in the series, which is a very controversial opinion because it's many people's favorite game. I by no means hate the game, but its element of choice isn't as good as it is in the other Fallout games, and it's not what Bethesda described it to be when it first came out. They made a huge deal about, oh, you'll have so many choices to choose from, you're kind of forced to be with the Brotherhood of Steel and be the good guy. The ending is, most people really don't like the ending of the game. They could have did more, I think, just to make it have more of a choice. DC, the ruins of DC, the Capital Wasteland, isn't really that fun to explore. Personally, I think Fallout has done other worlds better. DC is basically just all ruins, which is kind of obvious after there being a nuclear war, but there's really not much things that are fun to go explore. Most of DC is covered in super mutants who will kill you on sight. A lot of fun places you'd think you'd be able to get to explore, like landmarks. They kind of did that in Fallout 4, where they made a lot of Boston's landmarks parts of the game. Like things like the White House. The White House is completely nuked. It's just like a hole in the ground. This was the first Fallout game made by Bethesda, and they really took the games in a good direction. The older Fallout games were turn-based RPGs, similar to kind of like a tabletop game, like a Dungeons and Dragons sort of thing. They even added the turn-based weapon dynamic in the form of VATS, which is when you're in combat, you have the ability to freeze time and specifically target an area on someone's body to shoot them. Like, you could shoot them in the head, you could shoot their weapon out of their hand, you could shoot them in the leg, and that kind of working on how that works kind of depends on your stats and your skills. If you have high agility and luck, for example, VATS is more effective. Fallout 3 topped charts when it was released. It is still called one of the best RPGs of all time. I believe it sold 5 million copies in its first month alone. It was a huge game. It was a big deal. Many memorable moments from the game are when you have the choice to blow up the city of Megaton, which is a city that was formed around a nuclear bomb that didn't detonate. So there's just a big old nuke in the center of town, but someone comes up to you and says, hey, you want to blow up Megaton? And you have the choice to not or do it. And that's kind of a crazy option. There's that weird vault that has the simulation that takes you to like this black and white neighborhood, and there's a little girl who asks you to kill a bunch of people, and your dad's a dog in the simulation. Fallout 3 does have 3Dog, who is probably the best character in the entire series. I wish they could have put him in every game. And Bethesda also got Liam Neeson, of all people, to voice the character's dad, which I love Liam Neeson, so that's just a huge plus in my book. Because Fallout 3 was such a huge success, they wanted to follow it up as quickly as possible. People wanted more. Around this time, the member of Black Isle Studios, the company that made Fallout 2, were leaving and forming a new company called Obsidian. Bethesda contacted Obsidian and were like, hey, can you help us make a new Fallout game? And of course, the people at Obsidian were like, heck yeah, of course we want to be a part of this. And Bethesda only gave Obsidian 8 months. And in that 8 months, they were able to make what I think is the best video game of all time, Fallout New Vegas. Obsidian was able to use things that were previously scrapped from from other Fallout games that they were planning on making before it went to Bethesda. And you can really feel all the love that goes into this game. Now, I have a whole video about Fallout New Vegas, which is going to be my next video. So this is just kind of like a brief overview of New Vegas. I go a little bit more in depth in the other video. The best thing about Fallout New Vegas is Obsidian listened to Fallout's fans about some of the critiques they had about Fallout 3. Fallout 3 was a very beloved game, but there were some things people kind of just wanted a little differently. And Obsidian was able to listen to that and implement those changes into the game, which is a big deal. Obviously, video game developers should listen to their fans and what they want, something that Bethesda should now maybe take note of. At the beginning of Fallout New Vegas, it is the year 2281, and you are not a vault dweller this time, you are a courier who is delivering a package. And it's not just any package, it is a package that starts a whole heap of trouble. Fallout New Vegas is a hell of a game. It has so many choices, which can lead to so many different endings. I've played the game myself many times. I've never gotten the same ending, not once. There are so many factions and how you can deal with them if you want to be good to them or if you want to be a jerk to them, and all of that has a huge impact on the game. The karma system in this game is a lot better too. It's not so much like black and white, you're a good or bad character. You can you could do good by some people, you could do bad by other people. Fallout New Vegas is considered to be kind of like an overhaul of Fallout 3. They made the combat a bit better, being able to upgrade your weapons and add things to them. Both quests, main and side quests, are very in-depth. They have many different ways that you can end them. The writing and the dialogue in this game is phenomenal. I forget exactly how many hours of dialogue there are, but it is like a crazy big number. Every character in the game is like, no matter how small they are, they have a huge personality, and the game feels fully fleshed out. There is love in every corner of this game. It is amazing. About 7 years after New Vegas was released, what I would consider to be the most addicting of the Fallout games of all time got released, and that game is Fallout 4. Some big changes were made to Fallout 4. Obviously, the art direction went in a very different way. The game actually, I think, looks really good, unlike its predecessors, especially for a game coming out in 2015. They very clearly upped the art direction. The game is pretty stunning in a lot of points. The people sometimes look a little odd, but not everything can be perfect. The movement of the character felt very smooth. It's not like janky like in the other games. One of the biggest changes was the player character actually spoke for the first time. They had someone voicing the main character, which a lot of people didn't really like. I personally kind of like it. It is kind of nice. I wish they gave like different voice options, because every character you play as, I've played Fallout 4 quite a few different times. And it is weird when you make a new character every time, but they end up having the same voice. I kind of wish there were at least like some voice editing options, or maybe just a couple different choices. They did a huge overhaul on the skill system as well. There are still special attributes, but now there are no skill points. It's all perks that you can get. But they don't have a level cap in this game. So in the other games, the level caps would be at like 50 or 75 or whatever. Your player can just keep leveling up and eventually get like all the perks. The weapons got a huge overhaul. You can mod your weapons so much, and it's so crazy. And it's actually really cool because there's always been like junk in the world you can pick up, and before it never really served a purpose. It would just be like, oh, okay, like you could pick up a cup or a bottle, but it would be really pointless to do that because it just takes up space in your inventory. Whereas now you can actually use that stuff to build parts for your weapons, and they had a settlement system where you can actually like run your own settlements, and people can live in these towns, and you could build them and build crazy things and have like shops and houses, and it's actually super addictive to play. I don't know how a lot of people feel about it. I think it's really cool. So the story begins in the year 2077, right before the bombs get dropped. You and your spouse and your infant son Sean start a normal day, and then the bombs are dropped. So your family runs to the local vault, Vault 111, and everybody who enters the vault gets cryogenically frozen in pods. Kind of think like Futurama sort of thing. Someone enters the vault and unfreezes everyone for a short amount of time, years later, but doesn't let anyone out of their pods, and your player character can see from the pod across that your spouse and Sean are kind of in trouble. Someone comes into the vault and shoots your spouse and takes Sean. However, you are still locked in the pod, and then everyone is refrozen. So, again, after some time, you are unfrozen and you get out and you realize everybody in the vault is dead. Your spouse, you watch them get shot, but everyone else's cryopods malfunctioned except yours. So you go out into the wasteland and you find out it is over 200 years later, and you make your way to the Commonwealth Wasteland, which was once Boston, and you go on a hunt to find your son Sean. A lot of Fallout fans viewed Fallout 4 is a step backwards in the series due to how much kind of changed with it. There's a lot of changes from Fallout 3 and New Vegas, and although it's a bit different, I personally like how the game feels. As I mentioned, Fallout New Vegas is my favorite game in the series, and it always will be. That is a game that requires a lot of thought to be put into it. A lot of your choices in that game are kind of a big deal when you make it. One small choice can make or break the whole game and completely change the course of how it goes. And Fallout 4 isn't really like that as much, which I do kind of miss, but Fallout 4 is a nice game to just, if you're feeling kind of bored and you just want something to do, or you just want like a mindless activity, the game is really good for that. I play Fallout 4 all the time. When I play New Vegas, I really have to be in the mood to play it. But Fallout 4 is a game that pretty much almost any time I can just open up the game and start playing, and it's a lot of fun. Your character does have the ability to be really overpowered after a certain point, so it kind of loses its challenge. After you get to a high enough skill level, which is really easy to do, you will just start plowing through everybody in the game. There'll be like raider attacks and you'll just kill them all in one shot. And then is when the game kind of starts to lose its charm. I remember doing a melee-based playthrough once, and some of the perks that you can get to make melee super overpowered, and you could be like, yeah, it just can become very overpowered very quickly. I personally like the game a lot, despite a lot of the criticism it's gotten. I really embrace the Fallout 4's changes. I do hope in the next Fallout game they do listen to what the players want, plus Fallout 4's strengths. Bethesda has gotten a lot of flack over the years to not listening to what players want, especially after they released Fallout 76. I'm not going to talk about Fallout 76 because I think it is a garbage game. I have played it. We tried to get into it. It the Fallout world does not work as like a MMO type. The game just doesn't work for that, and I think it totally was just a cash grab, so I don't really like supporting Fallout 76. Fingers crossed that Fallout 5, Bethesda just listens to what people want.